fucked up, bad situation that Baldoni, whatever his name is. I'm a ride or die.
And this is my theory here on Ari Emanuel, where he is right now with this whole situation. I think that despite the bluster and despite the arrogant exterior, confident, arrogant exterior, Baldoni, whatever, I think that this guy actually, maybe for one of the first times in his career, he's actually spooked. Maybe not scared shitless, but spooked. Here's what I don't get, okay? We have heard for years and years that Ari Emanuel, he's about as tough a motherfucker as you can get in Hollywood and the entertainment industry. And I know the other day, Ari Jacob was talking about how she had known someone from the cast of Entourage, and that person, I forget which actor it was, told her that the real Ari Emanuel stories were so much worse or crazier or more hardcore than the stories that they ended up using in Entourage for the character Ari Gold, who was based on Ari Emanuel. And so I have always heard throughout the years that this guy was basically at the top of his game, that you couldn't get any more like shrewd or rough than this guy in terms of the way that he executes his job in the surface, of his clients. If that is so, this is my question. If that is so, if Ari Emanuel is really not only such a beast when it comes to PR, but also insightful and shrewd, how is it that he made such gigantic premeditated blunders at the Freakonomics interview? He made that totally uncalled for baloney remark. Totally uncalled for. It did not in any way enhance anything that he was trying to communicate. All it did was make him look ridiculous, exposed him as being a liar, because everyone knows that you know this man's last name. He was your client, and you've probably been hearing about nothing else for the past 2 months since this fiasco really ignited. It makes you look like a liar, Ari. It makes you look ridiculous, and it also could be taken as a racial slur, which I don't, but it could be. It's weird, it's insulting, it's dismissive. So that, to me, was indicative of someone who is completely off his game. Completely off his game. I almost wondered if he was drunk or something. So that's the one thing. And then he incriminates himself so unnecessarily with some of the comments about firing Baldoni. Like it wasn't even elicited by the guy interviewing him. The guy interviewing him, it wasn't even really going there. And he's like, yes, I fired him. And then he said, yeah, I'm ride or die. These things these are things that are incriminating. And he must have known that this gets to the very heart of Justin Baldoni's claims about him and WME and Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. So I asked this question yesterday when I went on Zach and Dana's show. I said, in light of the fact that Ari Emanuel is supposed to be such a shrewd, insightful, savvy beast of a man when it comes to this realm, this arena, right? He's like Maximus or whatever. Why did he make such big blunders? And Dana, spelled Dana, pronounced Donna. Donna said, I'm sorry, I mispronounced it earlier. Donna said that she believed, this is an interesting theory, that the fact that the day before this Freakonomics recording, Ryan Reynolds had posted to his Instagram a picture of him with his arm around CAA, the head of CAA agency, Brian Lord. And so what Donna said is that this was basically a threat to Ari Emanuel and WME by Team Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, to get your ass into gear and do something, defend us, help us, or we're going to take our empire and our cards and go to Brian Lord at CAA. And so basically, Donna's theory is that Ari Emanuel saw this and realized that if he had to do something dramatic and public, that would make some kind of an impression for his client. And so he went to this taping knowing that he was going, as he admits, he says, I expected these questions. I wrote it down. I made some notes, right? He said, expected these questions. I made some notes. So basically what he said was premeditated, right? So he had planned, Ari Emanuel, that he was going to say these things in order to signal to Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively that he's going to do more for them and that he's on their team and he's going to play ball, right? So I understand that, and that's a brilliant theory, and it very well might be the case. But my question still stands. Why did he do such stupid things? There are ways you can show support. He could have said positive things about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and he could have made the case for them in various ways without coming out flat out saying, I fired Baldoni because I'm ride or die with them because I want to make them happy, right? And that baloney remark, which was completely unnecessary. So my question still stands, even if I understand, okay, the catalyst for him doing something, why did he do something so clumsy and so self-incriminating and stupid that would generate bad PR? And here's the thing, it was so obvious. It was so obvious that he had blundered that the podcast disappeared, right? I can imagine, and we were talking about this yesterday, that as soon as this shit came out of his mouth, Ari Jacob pointed this out the other day, that these people go everywhere with their publicists. These high-powered people, when they do public appearances like Ari Emanuel here, that they bring their publicists everywhere. And so Ari Jacob yesterday on the show theorized that what happened was Ari Emanuel said this stuff, made these blunders, these huge blunders on this podcast. And then the publicist was sitting out there in the audience or to the side of the stage and went basically, what the fuck? This cannot go out. This cannot be aired. And so then basically, as soon as Ari Emanuel gets off the stage, the publicist finds him, because there was another guest after Ari Emanuel. Okay. It wasn't just Ari Emanuel gets off the stage and the recording is done. So there was time, is what I'm saying. There was time between Ari Emanuel getting off the stage and then when this recording was supposedly going to end, right? And so there was plenty of time then for the publicist to say to Ari, what the fuck? This cannot air. Ari says, okay. And he goes about working his magic, so to speak, and he gets it taken care of in some way. Maybe the host knew, maybe the host didn't know, but it's too much of a coincidence. I would pretty near bet my life that this was intentional, that this thing disappeared or was never recorded. And so I think that's what happened, but still, it just doesn't quite answer the question of why make those blunders in the first place. And I guess the only thing that I can figure, and this is my theory here on Ari Emanuel and where he is right now with this whole situation, I think that despite the bluster and despite the arrogant exterior, confident, arrogant exterior, baloney, Baldoni, whatever, I think that this guy actually, maybe for one of the first times in his career, is scared pretty shitless, because he and WME and Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively are being sued for a ton of money. I'm sorry, y'all, when you get into the hundreds of millions, then this isn't just something that can be shrugged off anymore by anyone. They're being sued for tons of money. They are now stuck in a legal and PR battle that is going to go on for at least a year. I think probably more, as there'll be delays. My experience, a year and a half, 2 years, and it's going to be incessant torture for him and for his clients. And here's the thing. I'm sure that the more stress that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are under with all of this, remember, they're still his clients. And Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, all that stuff, and all of his businesses, still a big draw here for WME and Ari. And I am sure that the more stressed out that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are getting, the more they've got to be on Ari Emanuel's case, like on the phone, texting in all caps, with exclamation points, whatever, do something. What do we do? This is terrible, whatever. And so this guy is just going to be, I talked about how Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively are going to be stuck in a torture zone until this is over. Well, this guy is as well. So I think that maybe for one of the first times in his career, he's actually spooked. Maybe not scared shitless, but spooked. And I think that there was no way in hell that he predicted. He should have, if he's such a smart, shrewd guy, but I think there was no way in hell that he predicted that this thing would blow up like it has blown up. And I think that he is still back on his heels. Maybe that's why they've had to call in the big CIA guns, is to get somebody who has some calm about them or has their head on their shoulders. But I think he was thrown back. And so I think that this is what happens when someone is spooked, is they start making errors, right? People start when they're panic. That's the first rule of thumb in an emergency or in a problem situation, is don't panic, because you start making errors. And I think those huge errors that he made at that taping, that Freakonomics taping, I think that those indicate to us that this is a man who actually is pretty spooked inside with everything that's going on, and doesn't know what to do and doesn't know what the play should be. It reminds me, y'all, of when you're watching a football game. Kind of like what happened actually with Mahomes. It reminds me of when, you know, just even like the last Super Bowl game, when the quarterback has the ball, but it's just not, things are, the night's not gelling for him. It's not going well. And what happens? They get spooked and they end up either getting sacked or they end up having to throw the ball away. To me, what was going on here, this was Ari at this Freakonomics thing. This was Ari basically getting spooked and throwing the ball away, throwing the ball some random place, and it got intercepted. It was basically a fumble or an interception going on here. And so that's my reading of it. And I think that it gives us a window into the real panic and the attitude over at Team Lively Reynolds for him to make this mistake. And I'll tell you one more thing. Listening to that audio of Ari that we leaked, listening to that audio, to me, this sounded like Bluster just barely covering Nervousness. To me, when I listen to him with that Bluster, that Baldoni, and him saying, I don't really follow this stuff, and kind of stumbling around at times on his words and stuff, this sounds to me like someone who's extremely nervous and is therefore not sure of how to navigate the situation, and is saying things that are like blustery and overly confident and arrogant to try to cover over the nervousness. So I think that was one of the big telling moments of this whole thing. And I'm so happy that we do have the audio, and I hope that Team Baldoni is able to use it.